Hello, everyone. Welcome to Phoenix Free Press with Nikki Phoenix. This is an exclusive interview on the 1 million US dollars donated to Barbuda by Mr. Steve Morgan in 2017. The issue came to the public's attention in Antigua and Barbuda just last month, January 2024. The donor himself, Mr. Steve Morgan, has joined Nikki Phoenix and Phoenix Free Press this morning for an early morning sip and chat because he's quite busy. We're going to talk about this. Mr. Steve Morgan, just to give you a little preview of Mr. Steve Morgan, he's an entrepreneur and a philanthropist. He was born in Liverpool, United Kingdom. Mr. Morgan's passion for giving back prompted him to set up the Steve Morgan Foundation in 2001. He is passionate about bringing positive change to the communities closest to his heart and beyond. Mr. Morgan received an OBE, which is the Order of British Empire, in 1992 for services to the construction industry. And in 2016, he received a CBE, which is the Commander of Order for the British Empire, for philanthropic services in recognition of his pioneering approaches and achievements. Mr. Steve Morgan continues to prioritize the ongoing support of the Steve Morgan Foundation alongside his business interests and has thus far donated over 300 million pounds in donations since 2001. Why are we here on this early morning sip and chat? In 2017, September to be exact, the tranquil island of Barbuda faced the wrath of Hurricane Irma. I, as a journalist, Nikki Phoenix, covered Hurricane Irma. I went to Barbuda and covered Hurricane Irma. A devastating Category 5 storm that left an indelible mark on the lives of Barbudans and, of course, just the memory and the experience of Antiguans and Barbudans. Excuse me being emotional about this. Today, we have the honor of hosting a man who, in the spirit of philanthropy, extended a helping hand during that time, that tumultuous time. Mr. Steve Morgan is here to speak about this 1 million US dollars that he donated in September 2017 as soon as he heard of this situation happening. 6+ years later, we find ourselves navigating through the intricate web of a dispute between the Antigua and Barbuda government, the Global Bank of Commerce, and our esteemed guest here on Phoenix Free Press, Mr. Steve Morgan. 1 million US dollars was intended to aid the devastated people of Barbuda. And shockingly, today, the 8th of February 2024, those funds are yet to reach the hands of those who need it. Mr. Morgan, good morning. Welcome to Phoenix Free Press.
Morning, Nikki. Call me Steve, please.
Thank you, Steve. You know, my very first question I want to ask you, Mr. Morgan, as we embark on Steve. Okay, my apologies. Thank you. You know, Steve, as we embark on this exclusive interview, I must inquire about the genesis of the issue. Now, can you shed some light on the circumstances surrounding the delay and subsequent failure of your generous donation to reach Barbuda or the people of Barbuda, and how this gesture of goodwill transform into a protracted dispute?
I don't know whether it's a dispute, Nikki. I mean, the situation is the money has never ever reached the people of Barbuda, and you have to go back in time to what happened then. And it was, I think it was, if I just looked this up, I think it was 6th of September 17, Hurricane Irma hit Barbuda, and of course it was a devastating event, as you quite rightly said. And we were in the UK at the time, but it was all over the British press and BBC and news, etc. And I mean, I was devastated for the people of Barbuda. I mean, luckily Antigua escaped the worst of it, but Barbuda was just completely destroyed, as we know. And I'd already built a home in Jumbie Bay in Antigua, and And I regard to this day Antigua as my second home. I feel sort of almost half Antiguan. I love Antigua, and it was devastating to see what had happened to Barbuda. So immediately I had summoned a meeting of my trustees for the foundation, where we immediately approved a donation of $1 million, and we got in touch with the government to say, look, we want to donate 1 million. At the time, we didn't know what the death toll was. We didn't. We just we knew it was terrible, but I mean, at the time we were motivated to give this, no aid had got to Barbuda at all. It was still so early days.
Yes.
So we were advised that a bank account had been set up by the government, and that was the Global Bank of Commerce. And there is an email from Brian Stewart Young to Gaston Brown confirming that the account had been set up and ready to receive monies.
Yes.
And that was the account we were asked to pay the money into. So it wasn't an account we set up. It was an account that the government had set up, and Gaston Brown himself with Brian Stewart Young. And I'm actually looking at the email confirming the account number, and it's set up in the name of the government of Antigua and Barbuda Relief and Rebuilding Fund. So we paid the money into this under instruction from various members of the government. Including Whitfield Harris. There's an email from Kanata Lee, all dealing with the nuts and bolts of the account.
Yes.
And then there was several emails from one of my colleagues called Ashley Lewis to Brian Stewart Young of Global Bank, and eventually within a few days the money was sent through. We asked for the money to be for us to be a counter signatory on the account, and that was agreed. And then it sort of disappeared then into a black hole. After a while, we chased this up and saying, what's happened, because we were supposed to be the signatory, and we'd not been asked to sign anything. We're told, well, the money's still there. We're awaiting what to do with it, because we're taking a court. By this time, we knew how bad the personal situation was, and lots of people had been evacuated. So this was in weeks and weeks later. They were now in the how are we going to rebuild stage. So I get that, I understand that, but from then 2017 to today, which is 6 years ago, in fact 6.5 years ago now, the money has stayed, and we have requested. I've personally met with Gaston Brown, who assured me that the government were going to access the money and use the money for housing. This was just before the last election, literally a couple of weeks before the last election, and he assured me that what money was going to be used for rebuilding housing in Barbuda. And despite numerous letters and emails since, I've never once had a reply following that meeting. I'm upset, actually. Not for me. I'm upset for the people of Barbuda. It was given by our foundation in good faith to the people to help Barbudans rebuild their lives, and it's stayed in this bank. And as far as I know, is still there, and we cannot get the money out. So I'd say it's not a dispute. It's the money is there, and it's gone into what we now know as an ailing bank. But it was the bank that the government asked us to put the money into. And I actually think that the government has got a responsibility to somehow access that money and spend the money where it's supposed to be spent on for the people of Barbuda.
I made notes here where you said that you're upset. And I had that question to ask you, how do you feel? Now, you've been doing donations and your philanthropic work since 2001. You've donated over 300 million pounds, and understanding the intricacies for the expectations when you have a non-profit organizations in the UK and all the legal aspects involved in it. Have you ever had an experience like this? Have you ever had any situation where there's such a difficulty in the length of time of a donation reaching its intended party?
No, Nikki, uh, this really really poor experience is a complete unique. I've never had it before, and never had anything like it before. I mean, we do some really big work here in the UK, and we'd love to do more in Antigua, but this has left such a bad taste. That how can we trust whether if we give money into a government bank, open bank account, and that doesn't get used? And it's, you know, how can, if we can't trust the government, who can we trust? It's really left a bad taste. And I mean, I would love to do more work in Antigua, and more charitable work, that is. But it's just such a bad taste. I mean, we just set a food waste scheme with the King in this country, and our foundation. We were the first supporters of this new initiative by King Charles, and I know it's fantastic. It's helping poor people with food poverty in the UK, and you know, we do massive. We're one of the biggest donators in the world to type 1 diabetes research, and we do give hundreds and hundreds of donations every year to poor people in the UK, because there's plenty of them in the UK. And I know that there are plenty of disadvantaged people in Antigua, and we'd love to help those causes. But when you have an experience like this, it doesn't leave a great taste.
I know you had a chance to hear the response from the government's chief of staff on February 1st. There was the post-cabinet press briefing last Thursday. The government's chief of staff, Ambassador Lionel Hurst, basically said that he's attributing the delays to the Global Bank of Commerce, and if there's any investigations or intervention, the Financial Services Regulatory Commissions should basically step in. How do you counter these statements? Or how do you feel about these statements? How do you feel about these statements? And what's your perspective on the government's role in resolving this entire donation-related situation?
Well, a couple of points on that, Nikki. First of all, this was the bank the government set the account up with and asked us to pay the money into. So the government had responsibility for directing where the money went. Now, I understand that this bank has subsequently run into financial difficulties, but the money, this is Barbudan people's money. You know, it was gifted to them. This is the people of Barbuda who are being cheated out of this money. It went into the account that the government set up and asked us to pay the money into. So the government has a responsibility for this. Like, I understand that the Global Bank of Commerce is a commercial it is a commercial business, and it's gone into financial trouble subsequently. But as I say, the government asked us to put the money into this particular account. The government set the account up, and we paid the money into it. So the government does have responsibility. And by fobbing it off to say, well, it's now a regulator's job to look into it, that's not the conversation I had with Gaston Brown 2 weeks before the election, the last election. On that particular occasion, he acknowledged that there was difficulties with the bank, and he said that we being the government could put some guarantees in place so that we could access those funds, and the funds that could then be used for housing in Barbuda. And I wrote to him literally, I think it was the day after, confirming everything that we'd said, and then I prompted with, my PA's prompted with numerous, I mean, dozens of letters, emails since then, and we've not had a reply, not one reply. So that's it.
The government stated that they will be making the 1 million US dollars available now to Barbuda through their own resources. How do you feel about that?
The government should be doing the rebuilding of Barbuda anyway, and our funds, the million funds that we donated, should be sort of like a cherry on top of the cake. Really, it should be in addition to. I mean, if the government spends money on Barbuda, well, they should be doing it. They should be rebuilding Barbuda, but ours was meant for a special purpose, and I don't understand what how they can respond like that. You know, this money should be ring fenced to do something, and I agreed that it could be used for building some houses. I don't, as long as it's for the benefit of Barbuda and the people of Barbuda, I actually would be very happy to see it go to any cause as long as it served that aim of Barbuda. And bearing in mind, this was 6.5 years ago, and $1 million 6.5 years ago is probably, with inflation and what could have been interest, is probably considerably more than that now, 1.25 million or something. So it's being diluted by the fact that it's sat in this bank account ever since then.
As the media scrutiny intensifies, because we're having an exclusive on this issue, it's in the space of Antigua and Barbuda on the radio airwaves. My apologies. What message would you like to convey to the public or the recipients and those concerned about the impact of your donation to Barbuda and your earlier statements about now reconsidering your activism in Antigua and Barbuda?
I would say to the government, my message to Gaston Brown and his government colleagues is do the right thing, and ensure that money is got out of that bank and is spent where it was intended, for the people of Barbuda.
Okay. Have you been in contact or in communication with the Prime Minister since last year, or any of the government, anyone from Global Bank of Commerce, or anyone other than MP for Barbuda, Mr. Trevor Walker, Honorable Trevor Walker?
We've written to Gaston Brown so many times and not had a reply since that meeting of 2 weeks before the election. And we've just not had any reply, any response whatsoever, not even an acknowledgement of our messages. And that was why I contacted Mr. Walker, because I know obviously he's the government representative for Barbuda and very much an interested party. And so that's why I contacted him.
Yes, I know you have to run. Just two quick questions. One would be with regards to any legal actions. Do you plan to just leave the entire situation? Do you plan to follow up on the funds? And if you're following up, will you investigate in a legal way? And my final question would be for us to end our interview on a very positive note, and you share the exceptional things that you did in London yesterday when you were here.
All right. I mean, I don't want to resort to legal. When you resort to using the courts to solve things, all you do is you pay huge lawyers' fees, and I'm not sure where it would get to anyway. So, my message is an appeal to the government to just do the right thing and get that money out of that bank and spend it on the good of the people of Barbuda. That's what it was given for, and that's what we want. And as for yesterday, yeah, well, the business which I started literally with a pick and shovel almost 50 years ago now, as I was a young 21 year old when I started and didn't know what I was doing, and did my first job laying sewers. Um, and I was the guy down the trench laying the pipes myself, and that's how I started. And yesterday, my business Redrow, which is one of the largest home builders in the UK, merged with another company called Barrett Homes, who are also a very major builder, to become probably the biggest home builder definitely in Britain and probably in Europe.
Wow.
So it was a big deal yesterday. So I'm very proud of that.
Congratulations. When I was speaking with Jennifer yesterday, she said something, but I couldn't hear exactly. So I said, good opportunity to end on a positive note from such a sour
Absolutely.
experience. But I also have to let you know there are nonprofit organizations in Antigua that are very to the point. They stick to the metal. And it's not only the government that you have to go through to support the people of Antigua and Barbuda and to open doors and, create opportunities for education, employment, advancement, the whole works.
Yeah. Good.
All right.
Thank you,
Thank
Nikki.
you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye. All right, lovely people. That was my exclusive with Mr. Steve Morgan himself, Mr. Steve Morgan of the Steve Morgan Foundation. I want to thank him. I want to thank you for your time. And we have to run. Stay blessed, stay focused, stay prayed up. And remember, no bias, no agenda, just facts.